Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Starting from today, you have the option to sign up as a channel member, which is a service that YouTube provide to the creators who want to expand their community. I have included two levels of membership. The first one is called Vision, and it will give you exclusive features like emojis, badges, shoutouts in videos, but most likely the access to all my spreadsheets. I'm starting this month with the Red Dragon Archfiend that I have already mentioned in one of my previous videos. And keep in mind that these spreadsheets will be updated monthly when new cards are released or just when I try new stuff and I discover better combos. With the second level of membership, you will get not only access to the spreadsheet, but once per month you will have the chance to suggest your own card related to the archetype or even just one of your favorite ones, and I will develop all the lines including that card, also playing around end traps as I always do when I feature some combos. Another bonus that you'll get if you sign up as a Soul member will be the option to send me once per month one of the replays of your matches, and I will dedicate to it a video in which I will comment your plays, suggesting maybe different lines or just improvements in general. So if you're interested, you can just go on my channel, click on join, and you can find your way to become a channel member. Now about the topic of today. I mentioned that I found a cool combo that includes the Red Lotus Flame King, which I kinda overlooked at the beginning. It didn't really change my opinion on the card, and I can't suggest to play more copies of it, because in fact it's a random card that finds its value only when your main play gets negated and you randomly have it in hand, or just on some really specific spots. But as I said before, the mechanic is interesting since sending trap cards to the graveyard can be really beneficial to improve our end boards. So the combo I'm referring to is just the basic Soul+Bone 2-card combo. If you take a look at the spreadsheet, we used to add Vision, as it was the best way to play around any possible interruption that your opponent could have had or held for a later spot in the combo. But of course, as you can imagine, it wasn't optimal, because if you want to play it safe, you will only have 2 guaranteed interruptions, and even if you try to play greedy, you will either end on nothing if you get stopped somewhere, or just with the usual board with this Pater, Othred, and maybe the access to Scarred. But in order to do so, you should add the Uvo Loop immediately, which means that if either your Bone Archfiend or the Red Rising gets negated, you will absolutely end on nothing. So let's see one step at a time why I used to add Vision. If Soul gets negated, of course we can just special summon Bone and access our standard line. Instead, if Soul resolves, we can't assume that our opponent doesn't have any end trap, so we will add Vision in order to have at least one guaranteed interruption through Imperm used at any spot. Now we still go into Bone, and if Bone resolves, once again we're gonna send a Crimson, or if it gets stopped by an Imperm, we can at the very least make the Quibbled with those two, summon the Vision, and then access an Othred plus a Crimson Gaia, which, if you are playing it, can also access a Fiendish Golem, or if you are just in game 1, will add more follow-up or the access to Red Zone, which might come in clutch later. But of course, this isn't optimal by any means. Now, if instead Bone resolved, we should send the Crimson Resonator, try to go into Red Rising, and once again, if Red Rising gets interrupted, we could at the very least special summon a Vision, access a Scarred plus Gaia and Red Zone, which once again isn't ideal, but at least it's a way to make an interruption plus a strong follow-up through one of your opponent interruptions. What happens though if the opponent let Crimson resolve and we get access to more tuners? We're gonna summon the Synchron, and also we can choose between the Vision itself that we have in the deck or another copy of Soul. In both cases, we won't be able to make a stronger board, because what we're missing this time are non-tuners and also ways to extend. So the Vision that we added at first, if one of our plays gets stopped, will at least reach one interruption, but if everything goes through, will be just a random card in our hand. And that's why I didn't love this line, even though in theory it's good, because can still end on the full board if Soul gets negated. But that once again just shows that Soul isn't the choke point of the deck, and instead that Red Rising probably is. But if the opponent has Nibiru and he uses in any spot, we'll be pretty much screwed. And the Vision that we added at the start won't help by any means to reach an interruption. And that's another reason why I didn't love this line. Now, it will seem counterintuitive, but there is another way to play this out to guarantee at least an interruption through any of your opponent's hand traps, with also the benefit to improve the end board if everything goes through. And that's possible only if you add the Red Lotus Flame King and you change entirely the way of play this combo out. Let's go back to the beginning. We had Soul plus Bone in hand. We start by normal summoning Soul. If Soul gets negated, we have Bone in hand, and once again we can go into our full line, which ends on 2 guaranteed interruptions, or even 3 if we started with Prosperity, or we have a way to banish one of our own cards. But if Soul resolves, this time we're gonna add the Red Lotus King. And instead of going straight into Bone, which exposes to negates on it and also on the Red Rising, we are gonna summon the Red Lotus King. So we have Red Lotus plus Soul on the field. We're gonna use those two to go into the Red Rising. And Red Rising will attempt to summon back the Soul Resonator, while the Red Lotus King will send to the graveyard our copy of the Black Coat Luffs. If this step is achieved, we have at the very least one form of interruption guaranteed through any of your opponent's hand traps. We kept saying that Red Rising is the choke point, so we could assume that the opponent might be interested to negating it. Even though there is a key difference between going into the lines with Soul and Bone and just try to summon back a Soul when you started with the Red Lotus King. Cause if you think about it, if your opponent just has an Imperm in hand and he has to decide if you want to use it on the Red Rising to prevent a potential Hotred, which the opponent might not be aware of, but in the end you have a Synchro 6 plus a level 3 monster, so that's a concrete option. If he has that Imperm and he plays the Dark Charmer, why should he stop this Red Rising? You are not threatening anything else, at least right now, and if you have another tuner in hand that you can special summon, you could probably use it with the Red Rising, besides this Soul Resonator on the board. At that point, he could use that Imperm directly on the Hotred during his turn, which will also play better into something that you might have in hand, and also gives him the option to revive it with the Dark Charmer to have a really strong negate on the board. I won't take for granted that if the opponent has an Imperm in hand, he will try to use it on this Red Rising. However, if the opponent decides to Imperm this Red Rising, we are still gonna end on 2 guaranteed interruptions, which will also be stronger than the Fiendish Golem that I didn't even played in the main deck before. So we're just gonna follow by special summoning the Bone Archfiend, pitching 1 card from the end. We're gonna use Bone targeting this Red Rising Dragon. We're gonna send a copy of Vision, and with Vision, of course, we're gonna add the Crimson Gaia, which in this case, since we will make the Red Rising level 7, we can just use to add back the Vision and access an Hotred from there. So instead of ending with Hotred plus the eventual card that we can add with the Crimson Gaia, we have a guaranteed way to end on Hotred plus a Black Coat Luff in the graveyard, which is super strong, especially in defined format like this one. But what happens if the opponent let that Red Rising resolve? In this case, we will summon back Soul. Now, if we assume that the opponent will use an end trap on the Red Rising, or even before, we could technically try to switch to our standard combo by just sending the Red Rising to the graveyard in order to summon the Bone Archfiend. If the Bone effect resolves, then we are completely fine, because we will have access to our usual Crimson line. So we're gonna send the Crimson to the graveyard, we're gonna summon it back with another copy of Red Rising. Now the opponent can nib, but as we said, if we added the Vision, we would have still been blown by nib, and we would have also ended on 0 interruption. Instead, this time we have at the very least the Black Coat Luffs in the graveyard, which is better than nothing. So we try to resolve the Crimson Resonator. We summon the Vision and the Synchron. And if the opponent doesn't nib, we can end on a much better board, which will end with 4 interruptions, which is the most that a 2-card combo, which doesn't include a proper summon of Crimson, can access. So we use the Red Rising and the Vision to access a Scarred. Vision triggers in order to add the Crimson Gaia. Now we use Scarred and Synchron to access our copy of Hotred. Both will trigger to summon another Red Dragon Archfiend and also to add back the Vision. And now we can go into this pattern using the Crimson and also the Red Dragon Archfiend. we can activate the Crimson Gaia to add a red zone. And even if it looks just as our standard combo with Hot Red and this pattern without even being guaranteed, if you think about it, on our opponent's turn, we can at any moment banish the Black Outlaw from the graveyard, which will prevent him to activate the effect of a key monster on the field. From there, we have a banished card for this pattern that we can put back in order to pop a card on the field. And when we do so, the Crimson Gaia will trigger to summon back one of our Red Dragon Archfiends, mainly Scarred, and that will also make the red zone live. So, we have 4 different types of interruptions. One is a generic negate from Hot Red, one is a pop from this pattern. We also have a trap card on the board and a trap card in the graveyard. So, they're pretty layered, they're all different forms of interruptions. We have insane follow-up, and if I have to be honest, I never found a way to access such a board with a 2-card combo with this deck before. So, all things considered, I want to say that this combo is only viable if you play 1 copy of Red Lotus King in the deck, and if you think about it, if you just opened with the Soul plus the Red Lotus King itself, by adding the Archfiend you will end on the same combo. And once again, if Soul got negated, you will find the best value from the Red Lotus King, which is access the Hot Red plus another interruption. So, this was a quick one. I don't know yet if there's a 3-card combo in which Red Lotus King finds own place as the best possible option that you can have, because in 3-card combos you are usually willing to add cards like Uvaloop in order to have a guaranteed interruption after Nib without hoping that your opponent doesn't catch your choke points. But as I said, having this type of mechanic always viable, especially in the combos in which you summon Soul using the Crimson, it's a big improvement for the deck and an option that we didn't have before. Now, in the spreadsheet I have already included all the possible 2-card combos playing around any possible end trap as we did this time, but I still want to try more things with this card. And I will also post all the 3-card combos during this month, mainly when I'll be back from Euros. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this combo. Let me know if you have found something else already, and what are your thoughts on the spreadsheet and mostly on the channel members options. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys in the next one.